My name's Claire Squires, and I'm the director of the Scottish Graduate School for Arts and Humanities, and I'm going to be speaking in this session along with my colleague Lindsay, who's going to say hello to you as well.
Hi everybody, I'm Lindsay Wilson. I'm the Administrator for Scottish Graduate School for Arts and Humanities. I'm here to help Claire answer any of the questions that you might have about your application today.
Great, thank you very much. So just to let you know a couple of housekeeping things before we get going, we're going to ask you all to keep on mute throughout, although you should be able to use the chat function. So if you have questions for us as we go along, please do put them into the chat, or if you know you have a question but you want to say it out loud, just say that you'd like to ask a question and we'll allow you to do that. We will have a time at the end as well for Q&A as well, so you can also save them for the end of that. You'll have noticed that we are recording this session. We're doing that for anybody who isn't able to be with us today, or indeed if you want to watch this over again yourselves later on. If you want to, please do switch your video off, but we're very happy for you to keep it on as well, if so. So just to make you aware of that, but we'll switch the video off, the recording off when we get to the Q&A anyway. Just a bit of detail before we get going about the structure of this session. It's going to last about an hour, depending on how many questions you have. We're going to start off just by giving you a little bit of information about SAGSA, then talk a bit more about what our offer is in the Studentships competition, and particularly a bit more about how our training is structured and additional funding opportunities that we offer as well. And then we're going to give you some more detail about what I'm sure you're all specifically here for, the Studentships, the Studentship competition and the application process. And then, as I said, at the end, we'll have time to answer any questions that you might have. But again, do use the chat as we go along. So just to start off with a bit of information about SAGSA. Some of you may be very aware of this, some of you may only have just come across this. SAGSA was founded in 2014, and we're very proud to say it's the world's first national graduate school for the arts and humanities. We have 16 HEI universities and university level colleges, plus more than 100 members, plus more than 100 academic founding supporters. And in addition to the studentship competition, which is the reason for this session today and why you're here, one of our additional aims is very much to open up all of Scotland's resources to enhance doctoral training for our members, students. So that's not just for the students that we fund via PhD studentships, but also for all of the doctoral researchers in arts and humanities across Scotland. So we have a kind of broader community that we provide various different activities for. So as I said, we have 16 HEI members, Higher Education Institute members. So you can see who they are on our screen here. So they're from across the whole geography of Scotland, from some of the oldest institutions, St Andrews, Edinburgh and Glasgow, and some of the largest as well, to the University of Highlands and Islands, and some of the small specialist institutions like the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. But probably particularly important for you to note for the purposes of the doctoral studentship competition is we have a set of the HEIs within that 16 who are the ones through whom you can apply for these studentships. So that's 10 of them, and they're on the screen here. And it's particularly important to bear that in mind. We'll talk a bit more about what the relationship is between the individual university applications and SAGSA when we're talking about the application procedure. We'll often talk about the DTP for shorthand, and that's the Doctoral Training Partnership, and sometimes the Doctoral Training Programme. So if I use lots of initials, you'll know what that's referring to. So turning to that and thinking about what our DTP2 offer is. So this is the offer for the PhD students, doctoral students who we fund. So we offer 3.5 years of funding, or if you are intending to be a part-time doctoral researcher, that's doubled up to 7 years. We offer a doctoral training program, and I'll talk a bit more about that in just a moment, along with additional opportunities and funding. And we also create a DTP peer network as well. So it's not just about us funding you as potential individual students, but also the ways in which you might work together with other students across SAGSA. One of the things that's important to note, and this is important for any application that you might make as well, is that the remit of a doctoral training partnership and a doctoral training program is around training. That's really important. So we want to enable you to become not just experts in your field, but also to give you a set of wider skills, which gives you the capability to succeed in ongoing careers, both potentially within academia, but also outside of academia as well. And this very much flows through from where we get the money from, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, from their research training framework. So in order to do that, we've created a doctoral training program for our funded researchers, which is built on 4 pillars. And it's important to know a little bit about this, and we have much fuller details within our studentship guidelines, because what we ask you to do when you're putting together your studentship application is to really think through what training opportunities you might want to get from us. So very briefly, that doctoral training program is built upon what we call the 4 pillars. The first, the foundation, the professional researcher, very much relates to the kinds of training you would anticipate getting from your home institution HEI. So this isn't necessarily something that we're providing at SAGSA. But the second pillar of it, the leadership program, very much is something that we deliver for our funded students as part of our core leadership program. And within those 4 pillars, there's also 4 stages to it, 4 chronological stages, which map onto the 3.5, so going into a 4th year of activity. So it's a step developmental course, which includes a variety of areas and themes: equality and diversity, well-being, communication, fellowships, grant writing, etc. It also includes our annual summer school and our year 2 symposium, and those activities, when I talked about that cohort a network as well, are very important in building that. So every year, one of our flagship event is the SAGSA Summer School. We typically hold it in June. This year, of course, we held it online, but delivered nearly 50 different events. And here's on the screen, you can see some of the topics that we delivered during that event. As I mentioned, there's 4 pillars. The final 2, and I'll talk to you about these a little bit further, are our discipline plus catalysts and our knowledge exchange hubs. And each of our funded doctoral researchers must sign up to at least one of the catalysts and at least one of the hubs and attend events related to them. So the discipline plus catalysts are very much a way for us that we introduced last year, and we will be building up further this year, really to kind of bring together all of the disciplinary expertise across Scotland to help you out achieve in your studies. So as you can see, we have 11 of these, and you should be able to fit yourselves into one of these areas as well. They're also important in the ways in which your applications are reviewed. We give each of these disciplinary plus catalysts an annual budget, and they provide a set of events over the course of the year. If you look on our website now, under events, you'll be able to see some of those activities which are available now. So that's a kind of one of the crucial ways in which we organise our training. And the other one is around our knowledge exchange hubs, or KE hubs. And there's just 3 of these, but they're kind of broad topics: citizenship, culture and ethics, creative economies and heritage. And the purpose behind these, and again, there's a lot more information around these on our website as well, is very much to think about how your work as a doctoral researcher interrelates to the wider world outside of academia in these particular themed areas. And we work very closely in partnership with external organisations and companies, including Creative Scotland and the BBC. So it's important for you to think around these when you're putting together your application, in terms of thinking through how you'll connect with these, how you'll draw down on additional training and funding. So to make you aware of those. And then finally, in terms of training, and you can again see these if you go and take a look on our website, we have a range of bespoke and collaborative events that we run every year with our sibling school. You're going to get a little viewing of my cat right now. This is Ginger Squires. Every year we run an event with our sibling graduate school, the Scottish Graduate School for Social Sciences, Spring into Methods. We are running a series of events around sustainability and climate crisis over the course of the next year or so. And again, all of these events you can see details of on our website. I'm now going to hand over to Lindsay, who's going to give a bit of an overview of the types of additional funding that we offer. Lindsay.
Thanks, Claire. Yes, so when you receive an Arts and Humanities Research Council scholarship, not only do you receive your fees and a stipend, but you also have access to different funding pots to enable you to undertake training, as Claire was discussing earlier. So we're just going to talk a little bit about that just now. The first there, the Cohort Development Fund, is a pot of funding that you can apply to. You can apply to put on training that you see a gap in the market for it. So if you and colleagues feel that there's something not covered in your institution or within the catalysts or hubs, that event plans that are being produced, you can apply to us across 3 different deadlines to run your own training course, and we will fund that. The next is the engagement funding, and this is for you as a doctoral researcher to invest in your own individual skills development, what you need to achieve your PhD. So this can be across a number of different things. It can be funding for fieldwork, for archival visits. It could be language learning. It could be specialist training like filmmaking or it's gone out my head now, but all sorts of things. You can go to institutions across the world for training courses, or just to further your own research. Typically, we'll hold, again, 3 deadlines a year for all of our doctoral researchers to submit a funded application to us to do that. So the next one on the list is a visiting doctoral researcher. Sorry, the pets are all out tonight today. My dog's now decided it's time for a biscuit. You can, as an AHRC doctoral researcher, apply through our funding scheme to be a visiting doctoral researcher. This is quite an exciting opportunity. So this is where you can submit an application for us to fund you to study at another institution, normally internationally, to work on a part of your PhD with another expert, so another academic, for a period of generally up to about 6 months. Our current students have taken advantage of this. I think we've funded quite a number of these applications, and students in the past years have gone to America, to Europe, to Australia, to work with experts in their fields on maybe like a particular chapter of their work. So that's a really great opportunity for you as a funded doctoral researcher. So in addition to that, we also can fund you to have an internship. You might have seen if you've been following our website, we've got an open call at the moment for internship opportunities that the SAGSA have secured with partner organisations, and also some artist residencies as well. So you are fully eligible to apply to those opportunities, but as an AHRC Doctoral Training Partnership student, you also have the opportunity to create your own internship with an organisation anywhere in the world that suits you and that you're interested in. Finally, the last two funding opportunities, a scheme that we have called SURCAS, and I'm trying to remember the acronym for that. I think Scottish Universities Research Collections Association Scotland. And this is a competitive process where doctoral researchers can submit an application to us to work with a particular research collection across the consortium. It may not, it generally isn't a collection within your own registered or lead HEI, but the SURCAS group have opened up their collections to you as SGSAH doctoral researchers in order for you to access them through this scheme. So look out for that in the next, I think it'll be running next year, but it generally runs on an annual basis. The last pot of money that is attached to your scholarship is RTSG, which is Research Training Support Grant. And this generally is for conference attendance. So for you, you submit an application, it's funded through your, or managed through your HEI, but you can apply to this to attend conferences. Hopefully not in the near future, you'll be able to go to more than a digital conference, but that's what that pot there is for.
Great, thank you very much, Lindsay, and sorry for slightly messing up the slides while she was starting to speak there. Okay, now we're going to turn to talking a little bit more about the studentships themselves and the application process. As you'll already be aware, it's a competition across Scotland and across the 10 HEI members who are part of the DTP. There are approximately 60 studentships awarded per year. That isn't a particularly high number, so it is, and it's worth you knowing this from the beginning if you're not already aware, it is very competitive. And as a consequence, you know, starting early is really important on this. We don't have any quotas of the numbers of studentships that we award to individual HEIs or universities, or indeed to disciplines. There's not an allocation of studentships per disciplinary area or per HEI. The only thing you probably should be aware of in terms of caps on studentships, and we'll talk a bit more about eligibility in a moment, is there is a maximum number of awards that we can make to non-UK students, which is 30% of our total. So that's important for you to bear in mind. As I've already said, the DTP2 offer is 3.5 years of full-time funding, and that includes a stipend, which is about £15,000, just over £15,000 per year. It goes up incrementally every year, plus fees at UK level. Again, we'll talk a bit more about what the implications are for that if you're an international student in just a moment. What's important in terms of the assessment procedure for the applications is for us to look at, as well as your application and your preparedness, that there's the best research environment and supervisory team for you and your project. And part of that also is asking you to think through the training, which is why we emphasised that just a moment ago, both in terms of the core DTP training provision, but also some of those additional skills development opportunities, including those that you'd get via some of the funding that Lindsay has just talked about. One of the things that we have done for this year, and you'll see this advertised on our website and via our social media as well, is have a set of strategic themes and priority areas, which you can see detailed here. It's important to note that we're still very much offering studentships across the full range of arts and humanities disciplines. So if you're looking at these and thinking they're not one of the areas that my subject is in, please don't worry. This is more a case of us promoting these areas in particular. However, that said, you will see a question on the application form when you're applying to ask you whether you fall into one of these areas. But just for you to note that that's not taken into account in the assessment process. But we would like to see applications in these particular areas. So I'm now going to hand back to Lindsay, who's going to talk a bit more about eligibility.
Thanks, Claire. So this year is a major change in our eligibility criteria. Previously, we were open to UK and EU applicants or residents only. Now, though, UKRI made the announcement over the summer with Brexit transition coming to an end, that our scholarships are open to all nationalities. So, as well as UK, EU students will now be classed as international, but we're open to all nationalities. As Claire mentioned, though, we do have a 30% cap on the number of awards we can make to those who are non-UK applicants. Point to note, though, as we mentioned before, unfortunately, we recognise that international tuition fees are significantly higher than home or UK tuition fee levels. We as a DTP are only able to fund tuition fees at the UK home rate. So if you are an international student or doctoral researcher and are looking to make an application, you must check with your institution what their policy is in relation to the difference between the home and the international fee. And you should do that at the point where you're going through the nomination process, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Again, for the first time, the scholarship will be a full scholarship to all applicants. So that is tuition fees at home rate, but also for the first time, a stipend to everybody. One of the conditions are to be eligible to apply to the SGSEH application system is that you must have been accepted onto a PhD programme within the consortium of the 10 institutions. And you also must have been nominated by them. So if you have not been nominated by your lead institution, we cannot and won't accept an application from you, unfortunately. You may have seen some, but not quite all yet, have started their own nomination processes internally, and generally that will be ongoing from now through to the Christmas period. And so if you've already started, you might have just started, you're in your first year just now, or you've started in your part-time, you can still be eligible to apply for a scholarship. Our 50% funding rule means that so long as you have 50% remaining on the time remaining on your PhD as of the 1st of October 2021, then you are eligible to submit an application to us. Sorry, I've got a little question here, which is relevant about what about second year. So yeah, if you're, as I say, so long as you, if you're in your second year, you may not be eligible to apply. I'm happy to take emails for individual queries and individual circumstances. But as I say, the rule of thumb is so long as you have 50% of your time or your PhD study remaining from 1st of October 21, then you would be eligible. And the same goes for part-time students, which we would classify at 50%. So long as you have 50% of your 7 years still remaining, you are eligible for funding. So down to the actual process. Of course, you do apply directly to us once you have been nominated, but back at the beginning, you need to obviously, if you haven't already, look to seek a supervisory team. And please bear in mind that you don't have to have a supervisory team from one institution. We have quite a number of our funded doctoral researchers have cross HEI supervisory teams. So I would look at your lead HEI websites for the contact details of staff that you're interested in working with. Also, through their graduate school websites, the processes and timelines for the deadlines that you may be required to submit. You may also have seen from the beginning of this month, we posted all guidance and application forms on our website, which you can find under sgsah.ac.uk Prospective DTP. This also includes the marking criteria that our reviewers will use to review your and score your application. So the application form is split out over a number of different areas and criteria which the panel reviewers will look at and is in collaboration with the marking criteria. So just a brief run through, your qualifications or relevant professional experience, where your qualifications may be older or not particularly relevant to what you're planning to undertake your PhD in, a summary of your research, then your research proposal, which includes a whole list of different items to address. Then we want to know about your preparedness for doctoral level study, what your training needs might be and how you may interact with the SGSAH DTP offer. And then finally, we need a document from your supervisory team called an institutional statement, outlining to the reviewers their expertise and the research environment and why that is the best option for you and your project, and also to discuss how they will support and give you the best support possible for your individual training needs. So we mentioned the timeline for the nomination. That to say is being advertised by some, if not all, institutions at the moment, and will run through from now until January. Our online application system will open on the 1st of February 2021, and our links will go live on our website. So it will be on the front page, you can't miss it when it happens. And it will be open for 2 weeks to allow you to collate your application and upload it into our systems. We will then go through a process of review, and you should be, or you will be notified early to mid-April in 2021, whether you've been successful or not. So we have quite a a rigorous and transparent review application. From the 11 Discipline Plus catalysts that you saw earlier, these are grouped into 7 discipline-specific review panels, and they are we have members participating on each of these 7 panels from across the full DTP consortium, where they do have expertise in those areas. So they will review all the applications that are submitted to their review panel and score, and then those scores will go to a moderation panel, which consists of our consortium's Deans of Graduate School. So that will be a further 10 members of staff at senior level who also make up a part of our SGSAH executive committee. And as I said before, the criteria for reviewing and scoring your applications is fully detailed and published within the competition guidance.
Great, thank you very much, Lindsay. We're going to turn to Q&A in just a second, so please do start putting more questions into the chat if you want to. But I thought just it might be useful just to go through some of the typical questions that come up. So we'll just run through these first of all, and then if there's further Q&A that we can answer, we'll do that subsequently. Some of these we've already covered, but sometimes it's useful just to give a bit of just to remind you of that. So how many awards will we give out? We give out around 60. It varies a little bit. So sometimes, as Lindsay said earlier, you can apply as you're going into your second year, and that makes a difference to our budgeting, how much money we give. So we don't have a precise number, but it's around 60 every year. Important to emphasize again that although you apply to us direct via our submission system, you do need a nomination. You do need to be chosen by your HEI to go forwards, and we cannot accept your application without that. So it's very important for you to be nominated, and it's very important for you to check out what the deadlines and the process is for each of the individual HEIs. Late submission? Absolutely not. We do have a window, as we indicated earlier, within which you put your application forwards to us, and we strongly encourage you to make sure that you're doing that not on the final day, but a couple of days in advance, particularly in case you have any tech failures, which might happen. The only instance in which we might consider a late submission is this: there's been some kind of failure on our systems point, and we can evidence that. But as a consequence, we would strongly urge you not to leave it to the last possible date within that window, but to try and get your application up as early as possible. Can I apply to more than one HEI? Yes and no is the answer here. You can only put in one application, and that must come via and be nominated via a lead HEI. However, as Lindsay also mentioned, it is possible to have a supervisory team from different HEIs. And we very strongly encourage that to get you the best possible supervisory team. Sometimes that best possible supervisory team will be within one HEI, but sometimes actually you can make brilliant connections across our 10 DTP members across Scotland to make a really fantastic supervisory team. Although you can only put in one application with one lead HEI, it is entirely possible that you'll also have a supervisor at another university. In terms of applying to more than one panel, if your project is truly an interdisciplinary project, your application can be assessed by more than one panel. So that's possible to do. The word count, I've put this on, but I can't remember. I think the big main proposal section, is that about 1,000 words, Lindsay?
Yeah, 1,000 words.
Thank you very much. So if you look in our competition guidelines document, you'll see there's a template for the form, so you can start working on that, and it gives you all of the word counts. When you're actually putting it onto our submission system, there's boxes that you need to populate, but that tells you, our form template tells you how many words you have. Who should I say is the nominator of my application? So it will be an individual, and the best thing to do, unless Lindsay's going to tell me something otherwise, is to ask your supervisor who that is. It's different HEIs have different nominators on the form. So just check with your lead supervisor who that would be. Does that sound correct, Lindsay? Yeah.